The sun beat down on the endless expanse of sand. It was a landscape of browns and yellows stretching as far as the eye could see. This was the Mojave Desert, a place of scorching heat and hidden secrets. Sheriff Brody squinted, his weathered face etched with years of sun and hard work. He was a good man, a fair man, but the desert had a way of wearing you down. He'd seen too much out here, things he wished he could forget. The radio crackled to life. "Sheriff, we got something you need to see." Ranger Davis found something out near Eagle Rock. Brody sighed. Eagle Rock was in the middle of nowhere. "What is it, Davis? Another lost hiker?" "No, sir. It's strange. Can't really explain it over the radio. You better get out here." Brody felt a knot of unease in his stomach. Strange was never good in the desert. He grabbed his hat, the brim casting a shadow over his eyes, and headed for his truck. Another mystery awaited. The drive to Eagle Rock seemed to take forever. The sun glared off the hood of the truck and the heat shimmered in the distance, making the landscape look like a blurry painting. Brody gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. He'd seen enough mirages to know that what awaited him wasn't just a trick of the light. Finally, he spotted Ranger Davis's truck parked near a rocky outcrop. Davis, a young man with a nervous energy, waved him over. "Sheriff, you won't believe this," he said, his voice tight. Brody followed Davis to a small depression in the sand. Half buried in the ground was something that definitely didn't belong. It was metallic, silver in color, and shaped like a teardrop, but with strange angles and smooth surfaces. It looked like something that had fallen from the sky. "What in the world?" Brody muttered. Brody circled the object, his boots crunching on the loose sand. He reached out and touched it cautiously. The metal was cool to the touch, even under the scorching sun. There were no seams, no rivets, no visible way it was put together. "Any idea what it is, Davis?" Brody asked, his voice low. Davis shook his head. "No, sir. I've never seen anything like it. It wasn't here yesterday. I'm out this way every day." Brody knelt down, pulling out his pocket knife. He gently scraped away some of the sand around the object. As he did, he noticed a faint symbol etched into the metal, a circle with a line through it. It was small, almost hidden. He frowned. "We need to get this back to the station," he said. "Carefully. And Davis, keep this quiet. No need to start a panic." He knew this was something big, something strange, and something that could stir up trouble. 2 weeks earlier, the desert hadn't seemed so menacing. The sun was still hot, but the air held a different kind of stillness, a quiet hum of life. Sarah, a young geologist with bright eyes and a passion for rocks, bounced along a dirt road in her Jeep. She was on the hunt for a rare mineral deposit, something that could make her career. Sarah pulled over near a cluster of unusual rock formations. This was it, the spot her research pointed to. She grabbed her backpack, filled with tools and notebooks, and set off into the desert. "All right, rocks," she said to herself, a smile on her face. "Let's see what you're hiding." Hours passed as Sarah chipped away at rocks, taking samples and jotting down notes. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows, she realized she was lost. She tried to retrace her steps, but everything looked the same. Fear began to creep in. Then her Jeep wouldn't start. Sarah was stranded. Back at the sheriff's station, the strange object sat on a metal table under a harsh fluorescent light. Brody stared at it, his mind racing. He pulled up Sarah's missing person file on his computer. Her picture stared back at him, a smiling face full of hope. He scrolled through the report. Jeep found abandoned, keys in the ignition, no sign of a struggle. Search teams had scoured the area, but found nothing. Sarah had vanished without a trace. Brody opened a separate file containing images of the symbol he'd found on the object. He then opened Sarah's research notes, which her parents had provided. He began comparing the notes to the symbol. There, on one page, tucked away in a corner, was the same symbol, a circle with a line through it. Sarah had labeled it possible marker, subterranean anomaly. Brody felt a chill run down his spine. This was more than just a coincidence. Brody leaned back in his chair, his eyes scanning Sarah's notes again. She mentioned a hidden cave system located near the area where her Jeep was found and not far from where Ranger Davis discovered the strange object. She believed this cave system held deposits of the rare minerals she was searching for. The notes also contained a hand-drawn map showing a faint path leading towards a series of rocky hills. Sarah had written entrance possibly concealed, look for the marker. The marker, of course, was the circle with a line through it. Brody picked up the phone and called Davis. "Davis, I need you to meet me back at Eagle Rock. We're going cave exploring." He hung up, a sense of urgency washing over him. If Sarah was still out there, lost or trapped, every minute counted. He had a feeling this cave held the answers he was looking for and maybe, just maybe, a chance to bring Sarah home. The sun was already beginning its descent as Brody and Davis, along with 2 other deputies, geared up near Eagle Rock. They packed flashlights, ropes, and first aid kits. The air was thick with anticipation and a touch of apprehension. Following Sarah's map, they hiked towards a series of rocky hills. The terrain was uneven and loose rocks made the going slow. Davis pointed to a faint trail. "Looks like this could be it, Sheriff." They followed the trail until it led to a narrow crevice in the rock face, almost hidden by a tumble of boulders. Carved into the rock above the entrance was the symbol, the circle with a line through it. Brody shined his flashlight into the darkness. The entrance was small, barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. "All right, let's go," Brody said, his voice echoing slightly. "Stay close and watch your step." The search for Sarah had begun in earnest. Inside the cave, the air was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the desert heat. The beam of Brody's flashlight danced across the walls, revealing rough, uneven surfaces. Water trickled down the rocks, creating a constant dripping sound. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the earth. They moved slowly, carefully, their voices hushed. As they ventured further, they began to notice strange markings on the walls. They weren't natural formations, they were clearly carved, depicting geometric patterns and symbols similar to the one on the object. "What do you make of these, Sheriff?" Davis asked, his voice echoing slightly. Brody examined the markings closely. "I don't know, Davis," he said, "but I don't like it. It's like someone was trying to tell a story that was getting stranger with every step." They continued deeper, the darkness pressing in around them. The tunnel opened into a slightly larger chamber. Brody swept his flashlight around, illuminating the space. In one corner, they spotted something lying on the ground. It was a backpack. Davis rushed over and knelt beside it. "Sheriff, it's Sarah's," he said, his voice tight with a mixture of hope and concern. "I recognize it from the pictures." Brody approached cautiously. The backpack looked worn and dusty, as if it had been there for some time. He unzipped it carefully, revealing a collection of notebooks, rock samples, and a half-eaten granola bar. He reached inside and pulled out a journal. This could be it, he thought. This could tell them what happened to Sarah. He flipped it open, his heart pounding in his chest. The last entry was dated 2 weeks ago, the day she disappeared. Brody held his breath and began to read Sarah's last entry. "I found it. The mineral deposit is even larger than I imagined. But there's something else here, something strange. I followed a series of tunnels guided by the symbols. They led me to a chamber I wasn't expecting. In the center, there's an object, metallic and smooth, just like the symbol suggests. It hums with a strange energy. I think it's connected to the minerals, somehow amplifying their properties. It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time. I need to investigate further, but I have a bad feeling about this." The entry ended abruptly. Brody looked up, his face pale. "She found something," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Something she shouldn't have." He closed the journal, a sense of dread washing over him. They needed to find Sarah, and they needed to find her now. The cave held more secrets, and those secrets were clearly dangerous. "All right, let's move," Brody said, his voice firm. "She mentioned another chamber. That's where we'll find her." They continued deeper into the cave, following a narrow passage that sloped downwards. The air grew warmer, and a faint humming sound filled their ears. As they rounded a bend, they saw it, a large chamber bathed in an eerie, pulsating light. The source of the light was a massive object in the center of the chamber. It was the same teardrop shape as the one they found in the desert, but much larger, easily 10 feet tall. The object glowed with an inner light, a soft, otherworldly blue. The humming sound grew louder, vibrating through the ground and into their bones. And then they saw her. Lying on the floor near the object, unconscious, was Sarah. Brody rushed to Sarah's side, checking her pulse. It was weak but steady. "Get the first aid kit," he yelled to Davis. They carefully examined Sarah for any injuries. There were no visible wounds, but her skin was cold and clammy. As Davis tended to her, Brody cautiously approached the glowing object. He could feel its energy, a strange tingling sensation that ran through his body. After a few minutes, Sarah began to stir. She groaned softly, her eyes fluttering open. She looked around, confused and disoriented. What happened?" she whispered, her voice raspy. "You're safe now, Sarah," Brody said gently. "We found you." He helped her sit up, offering her some water. "Can you tell us what happened?" He needed to know what she discovered and what the strange object was doing to her. Sarah took a sip of water, her eyes fixed on the glowing object. It's not from Earth, she said, her voice trembling. I followed the symbols, just like my research suggested. They led me here to this thing. She explained that the objects were connected to the rare minerals, somehow amplifying their energy. She believed they were some kind of ancient technology left behind by a civilization far more advanced than our own. I wanted to understand it. Sarah continued to study it. I got too close. I touched it. She pointed to the large object. The energy, it overwhelmed me. It was like nothing I've ever felt before. Then everything went black. Brody exchanged a look with Davis. This was beyond anything they could have imagined. They had to get Sarah out of here, and they had to figure out what this object was before it caused any more harm. We need to get you out of here, Sarah, Brody said, his voice gentle but firm. Can you walk? Sarah nodded weakly. I think so, but I'm still feeling strange. With the help of Brody and Davis, Sarah slowly stood up. Her legs were wobbly, and she leaned heavily on them for support. The deputies helped prepare a makeshift stretcher to assist. They carefully began to move towards the entrance of the cave. Leaving the large object behind, Brody felt a sense of unease. He knew they couldn't just leave it there, but they also weren't equipped to handle something like this. He radioed for backup, requesting a specialized team to secure the area and investigate the object. As they made their way out of the cave, the humming sound faded and the eerie light grew dimmer. The desert sun felt warm on their faces as they emerged from the darkness. They had found Sarah, but they had also stumbled upon something far bigger and far more mysterious than they could have ever imagined. An ambulance arrived at Eagle Rock, sirens wailing in the otherwise silent desert. Sarah was carefully loaded onto a stretcher and taken to the nearest hospital for observation. Brody watched as the ambulance disappeared down the dusty road, a sense of relief washing over him. He had found her, and she was alive. The specialized team arrived shortly after, clad in hazmat suits and carrying sophisticated equipment. They secured the cave entrance and began their investigation of the strange object. Brody knew he wouldn't be privy to their findings. This was now out of his hands. He looked back at the cave, the entrance now sealed off with caution tape. The desert held its secrets close, and this one was unlike anything he had ever encountered. He knew that life in the Mojave would never be quite the same. Things had changed. Weeks turned into months. Sarah made a full recovery, though she still remembered the strange energy of the object and the feeling of being overwhelmed. She cooperated fully with the investigators, sharing her research and her experience in the cave. The strange objects, both the smaller one found in the desert and the larger one in the cave, were carefully transported to a secure research facility. Experts from around the world studied them, trying to unlock their secrets. But the objects remained stubbornly silent. They defied all attempts at analysis, their composition and purpose remaining a mystery. The official reports were vague, citing anomalous materials and unexplained energy signatures. The cave was permanently sealed, deemed too dangerous to explore. The desert kept its secrets. Sheriff Brody often found himself driving past Eagle Rock, his gaze drawn to the now sealed cave entrance. He'd think about Sarah, about the object, about the secrets hidden beneath the desert sands. He never spoke about it to anyone, not even Davis. Some things were better left unsaid, better left as whispers in the wind. The desert had a way of swallowing things whole, of keeping its secrets buried deep. Brody knew that the objects were still out there, somewhere being studied and analyzed. But he also knew that some mysteries were never meant to be solved. The desert held many secrets, and some were best left undisturbed. He had done his job. He had found Sarah. The rest was up to someone else. The sun beat down on the endless expanse of sand, and the mystery remained, a silent hum beneath the surface of the world.